I was recently at the Highlands recording a new video for my exploring series, and I thought I'd give you a behind the scenes look at how I process my photos. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm using Lightroom and Photoshop, so let's take a look. So when I first transferred my photos over from my camera to Lightroom, they come up in this orangey, reddish looking color tone. In order to correct it, I've created a profile which enables me to quickly change everything to the look that I want. However, I've also learned how to create Luts, and LUT is abbreviation for lookup table, which is just a means of saying it's a shortcut or a means of color grading an image. And this further enables me to try out different color swapping, so I can change the color channels in Photoshop, and I can save that as a shortcut. So when I first pull up an image like this one, it's just again that orange yellow look to it. So I go to the profile, instead of Adobe Color, I'm going to go down to Browse, and this is where I have my profile already established, or here are my LUTs. So my profile will change it to how the camera sees it, and that is so blue-green foliage and yellow sky. Now if I wanted to change it to something different, this is a color swap that I created in Photoshop. So it just flips what's there. Instead, I have more blue sky, some blue ground, but now the foliage is yellow toned. Now a different LUT that I came up with, I call Cotton Candy, it gives it an even more different look to it. So the process that I've been doing is I just kind of look at the image and I decide what it is that I want to say with it. So this one I processed just using the profile image, and I went through the usual grading of exposure and highlights and shadows and so on. And I just like that you see this swatch of blue here in the front, and it leads your eye back to the trees in the background, while also giving it some ethereal quality about it. Now this image of the dead tree, because I was looking more for barren wasteland look to it, and I really want to emphasize the branches, so I just went strictly with black and white. And here again, this is a picture of a dead tree in front of the wetlands. I like the swoopy high-level clouds that I have up here. That just kind of gave it some atmospheric feel to it. And this dead tree that's solid next to these grasses. And as I was talking about on the video, this is a pathway lined with trees. So the yellow swatches of grass or foliage kind of leads the eye back again. And this one, it just looks pastoral with some color in it, usual blue sky. The yellow isn't too unearthly looking, so it kind of helps. And I just cropped it because I liked this more broad look to it. Now this is one, I used my cotton candy looking LUT for it because I wanted to emphasize the blossoms. And you see those standing out against the backdrop. And because of the mix of colors, the pink and purple hues, it's a little bit more intriguing. So you look at it a little bit better, but also notice the lines of the branches of the twigs that are coming out at different angles. Those are also leading lines, leading your eyes into it. I talk about this shot on the video, how I liked how the shadow of the branches or the limbs kind of spiral out from the base of the trunk. And I just saw that more as black and white just because you really see the texture in the bark. You're not distracted by any sort of colors. You're just looking at basic elements. Again, this was another one I referred to in the video where the grasses had blown over into like these tent looking things. So these look like little pyramids, little triangles, and it just kind of points to the dead tree, the fallen tree in the background. This one I liked the yellow coloring in the front, so I went with the color swap. So it just kind of gives you something to look at, and then it just kind of fades out. Your eye travels further back into clearer water. Here's another one that I just converted to straight black and white because here's that diagonal line right here and here. Those are great leading lines. They also kind of border what's happening off to the center, and that's this family of Canadian geese. And you get this wonderful effect of just these black lines creating some density, but you can also see through it. This one was just basic shapes, so I kept it basic black and white. So you've got the cloud up here, you've got a dark tree, kind of balances on either side. You've got this pathway that goes off into the distance, and you've got these dead grasses that are all over the place. Again, another one that I just preferred in black and white because of just the basic shapes of everything. Got another swooping cloud formation over here, kind of mimics the tree a little bit, or it's coming off of the tree. And then just the horizon line and some trees. So a great way of showing off textures without distraction of any color or special effects. And speaking of special effects, I went with the original blue here, blue for the trees or bushes, blue for the path, and this golden sky, which I enhanced in my processing, because it just kind of lends itself to something otherworldly. When you've got these big blue blobs here, it kind of captures your attention and makes you look at it a little bit more than you normally would. So this is the first time I went out and shot with my new camera, and also first time I was editing with it. So I was a little bit more playful and trying out different effects and different things. Again, here's the tree line that I talked about in the exploring video, and I like how that creates a diagonal look. So I kept the blue looking trees for it, just because I like the look of it. This one I just kept as the regular profile versus color swapping out like the other one. You can see with this image, I did it in black and white. I also did a color swap, so you can see, which do you prefer. Again, it's just basically up to preference with that. And here's another one where I just kept it the way that the camera shot it, although I enhanced it a little bit. So in speaking of enhancing, you can scroll down to luminance, and you'll notice when you're playing around with the different colors that it might affect it a lot or a little. You have to keep an eye on it. So right now look at the trees in the back and how they're glowing depending on how much I change or alter. Again, there's the blue, there's the sky. Now this affects it globally, so you really have to watch where it is that how much you're moving the slider. So now this one I brought into Photoshop and was playing with the color sliders in there, and that turned out a little bit differently than just a regular color swap or Luts that I did. And again, with these three here, this was playing with colors in Photoshop, the color sliders. This was what you would normally call a color swap. and then this is taking it to black and white. And you'll see with this image here, I really played around with that, with the different colors. Do have to watch, and some of these are just experiments, so I didn't do much with them, but you can see where this got a little too oversaturated. Probably this one is a bit too, so you just have to watch how much you're doing it. This one was a total experiment, and I really liked how it turned out. So this is what I came up with for my cotton candy LUT. What I like about this is how much the shape of the tree really got accentuated, not only by the cloud, but by the color. So you have this sort of round, but sort of triangular shape of the tree, also with the cloud behind it, and then the colors just kind of radiate out from that as well. Some more turquoise in the middle to purple and pink at the outer corners. So I feel like that enhanced the shot. And like with this one, I really almost desaturated it because I wanted to focus on the basics of the shape of the tree against the cloud. But then you can see down here where, again, I played around with different colors. Not a huge fan of the green and the purple. I do, as you can tell, like blue trees. I don't know why, but it's enough for me to make a change. Again, here's a whole bunch of different changes that I made. Here's your basic black and white. Here's the profile image. Here's the reverse of the profile image. Here's a color swap. And each one kind of tells their own story. Now for this one, this was the color swap. And I really liked the blue tree amidst the opening of these clouds, but I didn't necessarily like the yellowness of the sky. I really worked to get rid of the yellow, but I still wanted to maintain the blue. So that's all part of editing. I had to take it into Photoshop, I believe, and edit out the yellow. So I have a basically black and white background, and then the tree is blue against it. This was my second shoot out at the Highlands. I kind of knew what I was going into a little bit better. I had some great cloud formations in the sky, and I was playing around with less extreme colors this time around, but again, looking to decide how to enhance the shot. What would enhance the shot more? The colors, which version of the colors? This one I really liked this otherworldly look to it with the blue trees or hedges and the yellow sky. That's what infrared is all about for me, is just kind of taking a look and tweaking it, making it look like an alien world, just something a little different. So here's this fallen over tree, and I referred to it in the video as kind of like a tree carcass. And this is what I was talking about, where you have this, either a cloud or an opening in the clouds that's about the same shape or mimics the shape of this knothole. So your eye is constantly kind of going back and forth between them. It draws your eye back and forth. But then you also have these limbs that are reaching up, kind of like dried out tentacles. It almost looks like a squid or an octopus has landed on the ground and dried out. So I really took down the saturation in this one. Kind of wanted it to look almost sepia toned, but still with a little edge to it. And you can see the difference between the two, like highly saturated with the blue or less saturated. So it just depends on the look that you're going for. Here's another one, basic image, but I saw it more in black and white because you've got basic shapes of triangle, got a line, a narrow rectangle down here, and the tree almost forms a circle. So you've got these basic shapes, great texture of the clouds behind it rolling in, and I really emphasized the dark streaks. So I took this into Photoshop, and I did some burning and dodging, And I prefer to do it in Photoshop because it allows you to really tweak just a little bit like this versus globally like in Lightroom, where you do either linear or the sky or big swatches of it. I have more control over it in Photoshop, at least the finer details of it. And that's a look at my process. I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope you check out my exploring video on the Highlands. Thanks for joining me.